My pencil, Venus Velvet number 2, a vein of graphite ore preoccupied in microcrystalline eternity, in graphite's interlinking lattices, symmetrically unfolding through a grid of pre-existent crystal hexagons, mirror image planes and parallels, axial infinitesimal bonds, self-generated, self-geometrized, a sound trapped in the graphite magnitudes. Atoms, electrons, nuclei, far off. A break without apparent consequence. Near far, far near, those micro-firmaments. Far in, the muffled noise of our goodbyes. The surgeon, seeking only my surrender, has summoned me. An evening conference. We sit together in the quiet room. He cannot ask for what I meant to give. No questions anymore. Just say he'll live. A world of light leaks through the double doors. Fluorescent mazes, frigid corridors, polished linoleum, arena sand, where hope is put to death and life is lost, and elevator doors slide open, closed. The towers of the teaching hospital, the field where death his conquering banner shook. My writing tablet opened on the table. I touch it with my hand. The paper thins. The paper's interwoven filaments are bluish gray and beige. No questions now. What is the chiefest deed that's asked of us? No questions anymore. No questions now. I turned my back on heaven for good, but saw a banner shaken out from heaven's walls with apparitions from Vesalius. A woodcut surgeon opening a book of workshop woodcuts, skilled, anonymous. The chisel blade of the engraver felt reverberating through the wooden blocks among eroded words, ornately carved. Annihilation, subtly engraved. All those whom lamentation cannot save, grown fainter through successive folios. A seraph turns a page, he'll live, then turns a page again, he can't survive. I turn the page myself and write, he'll live. Smell of my sweat embedded in my clothes. The surgeon says, we've talked with him. He knows. A seraph leaning near. Oh, say not so, not so, not so. My wonder-wounded hearer, facing extinction in a mental mirror. A brilliant ceiling. Someone's hand on his. All labor, effort, sacrifice recede. And then, I'm sorry. Such a man he is. Visionary crystallography, electron noise brimming in pencil lead, a sound trapped in the graphite magnitudes, far in, the muffled noise of our goodbyes in self-repeating crystal symmetries as graphite self-destructs in shearing off abraded words, and microcrystals break in microscopic heaps of graphite dust. My pencil, scribbling, giving up on us. A pinpoint leak of blood that can't be traced. A mass embedded underneath the heart, hepatic portal vein that routes the blood throughout the tract of the intestine maze and soaks the liver's capillary beds. The intima, a bleeding deep inside, something smaller than a grain of sand. Mechanisms poorly understood. All that could be done has now been done. I write the words, with vitals liquefied. A page is turned above, it did no good. A page is turned again, it did no good. Then fingers touch a page that can't be turned. But if it did no good, then how could I have watched as toxins dripped how many times into his bluest veins from hanging tubes with hypodermic fangs? And how could he have offered up his veins without a word, except to reassure me it's all right, and never lose his confidence and wait throughout how many closed eternities, like Theseus bound to a chair with snakes? The ship of Theseus passing overhead, our hands entwined, a single heart drained white, and all that could be done has now been done, and I sat by, seat of oblivion, and saw behind the hypodermic fangs the long pink throats of snakes, and sat chair-bound and spellbound and heart-bound and cobra-struck, though for his sake I would have risen up to crush the jaws of snakes with my bare hands. The tablet paper, thinning at my touch. He said of you, nothing can conquer her. The words appear, the pencil unaware of what it writes. But you did know how much. Words of defeated Antony, when all was lost, in graphite's faded gray. But you did know how much you were my conqueror. The tablet paper, bluish gray and beige. The graphite pressed and bound with binding clay. Graphite, a non-magnetic mineral, yet magnets hold the phrases to the page. A brilliant ceiling light, the god's blue glove. The gesture at the opened body's rim, all that could be done, has now been done. One and the many, many and the one. How could I turn and say, but this is him? How could I say, he bounded when he walked? How could I say, when he came home at night, a gust of snowy air around his coat, I drew him closer, holding his lapels. He caught me by the wrists and closed his eyes. How could I say I tried to memorize the truthful face, his smile a truthful blaze untrammeled still? I tried to learn by heart the light brown gaze, unguarded chrysolite from such another world that heaven made. Left iris with a comet fleck of gold. How could I memorize his gentle ways, the way he mingled friendliness with passion, plain dealing, open-handed, unafraid, the swift, reflexive generosity, his striking conversation, magic ease in seeking what the other could, then more in understanding, warmly understood, a quest for truth, but not for certainty, and the integrity I idolized. Another's mystery never trifled with. No one was belittled in those eyes. Nothing denied, held back, or kept apart, and never lost his gentle ways with me, and wanted power over no one else, but master of his heart and of himself, a mind that never darkened, Mastermind, fountain of pulsing energy at play, unshackled, unentangled, unconfined. Beneath the reading light, his pillowed head a crimson outlined silhouette at night, his profile marble carved, noble, sun-warmed even at night, in winter ruddy tinged, red gold of Titian's pigment-laden brush. The red-lit aureate curving of his ear, warm-blooded velvet, made for lips to find. I kissed his brow goodnight, and felt the touch of lashes brush my chin before they closed. Untroubled love, unmarred, and quiet sleep. His head a silken weight against my chest. Velvet in her elbow, dangled foot, voluptuous surrender, unarmed Mars, even in sleep composed, even in sleep possessive of my hand, still self-possessed. Never again are idle nights of peace. Never again to have him to myself. White sheets, white blanket shadows, whitest rest. His sleeping hand beneath the reading light, abandoning an ancient paperback of Buddhist parables that fell away when I retrieved it, dropping page by page. Oh, say not so, Ananda, say not so, Buddha replied, when his pupil companion came to him and sat down on one side and set aside his begging bowl and said, "My teacher, isn't beauty half the goal? For doesn't half the holy life consist of drawing near to beauty, step by step?" "Oh, say not so, Ananda, say not so." "Not half," he answered. "Say it is the whole." My pencil point, hallucinating scrolls, scrolling and unscrolling on the page. A wind was pushing shapes through waves of water, but whether shapes of water or of wind, impossible to say. Unscrolling waves in slow velocities, in solitudes unwheeling in volutes, in streaming spheres, in transitory sets of spiral stairs that climb, descend themselves, and disappear on wheeling water wheels and water wheels, expending wave momentum, piling up black waves in heaps, then turning oceans white. Black troughs, white crests, black troughs, directionless, but pulling back, then pushing east to west, and west to east, black troughs, directionless. Endings accumulating endlessly, in gathering accumulated force, how many thousand miles, and all to press ahead, but to what end? All for the sake of using oceanic force to lay a fringe of foam along a passing crest, then pulling foam down transitory walls, and pushing walls ahead, and all to break in momentary peaks along a shore we can't say where, and briefly taking back what's briefly given, everything in play, in gulfs that close and open, close again. In waves of water pushing shapes through wind, in each the other's mine, no gulfs to cross, but crossing gulfs in turn, and historyless. How could I say we wanted nothing else, and nothing less, and nothing more than this? To find each other's spirit's melting point, in changing states, never such nakedness between such two, my bluest veins to kiss, never such certainty, the self-same quest not to possess, but to be known, to know, not needing it confirmed, confirming it. And in a place arrived at on our knees, he tugged my face to his, as if he took his own life in his hand. All gentle ways, a lifelong quest for you, and won't let go unless you leave your fingerprints on me A gaze returned, the softest counterblow. In gathering my hair in gentle fists, persuasion's force, with no one to persuade, only persuading hairpins from my hair. There falling on the floor, a plunder gift, in nothing lost, but found and found again, in not conquest, but everything in play given, not taken, taken anyway, and not to keep in any case, but kept, possessed, but not in order to possess. Self-same, self-owned, self-given, self-possessed, but all in play, but conquered nonetheless. The yellow maze of frigid corridors shone black. It didn't matter where. I left, but sightless, pulling on my winter coat, my boots pulled over sweatpants, hat and gloves pulled on, indoors, as if to take him home. A maze of concrete blocks in doors and rows, in halls and hallways swallowing the rooms, in blind corners that swallowed up the halls, and elevator doors slid open, closed on hollow towers built in the negative, where bells plunged from their ropes were falling past. A crust of unshed tears above my throat. Give him back. Tell me what I can give. Without an altar, death. Without a place to pray, to beg for life, but let him live. I found a phone booth, placed to bawl unheard, and sank beneath its automatic light. The phone book hanging from a broken chain. I drew it to my lap, a sprawling weight of paper pulp from long-forgotten trees, snuffed out and boiled down and pressed in sheets of ashen paper, faintly blue and gray, a book unreadable and authorless, a mystical directory of the living, each page a random sample of creation in changing version of the book of life. I ran my glove over the listings, throngs, and found his name still listed with the living, whose stories vanish, leaving only names recycled and reused. This faring on and on, O mendicants. And overhead, a page that can't be turned. He can't survive, but let him live. My gloves pressing my eyes. 1,000 stars rotating inwardly, a millimeter past the streamer dark. And nameless comet phosphenes streaking by. Without an altar, death. Without a place. Hanging in mirror black, lit from above, my frightened face, kneaded in violet wax. My face, hanging above my lap, streamed out. I tried to press it back with clumsy gloves.